Hey everybody, welcome back to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Empire City Developer Diary series. Last time around, we started talking about Karai, really exciting, who I was under the impression was going to be the big baddie of the game. Today, we're going to have a conversation to find out if that was right. I'm really not sure. So I'm just going to flat out ask it right now. Ace, who is our big baddie in Empire City?
So, it's gonna sound really random. We decided to resurrect a character that we hadn't heard from the comic world in a very long time. His name is Mashima, and he was initially introduced in the Tales of TMNT under the series called Worms of Madness. And he was a character that was brought in as a foot mystic, was a devout shredder, a devout shredder mystic who was determined to get revenge on Clan Hamato. And it was it was from the events, I believe it was prior to, no, right after, I believe, yeah, right after Return to New York. So again, spoilers galore for those still reading the Mirage series. Basically, uh, in Return to New York, the Shredder had returned. It turned out he was resurrected via these like weird worms that sort of they ate his body and mutated and turned him into the this sort of like weird worm shredder. The turtles defeat him again and then throw him out to sea, and then this guy Mashima kind of collects those worms in his body and creates like the shark shredder who just says who's like descends upon Planamato. It's funny in talking about him though, I will end up accidentally giving away some of the plot of our game because we obviously wanted to borrow really heavily from his origin story. But I guess in the spirit of just talking a little bit about like why him, I guess probably the spirit of it. There's a series, and there was a book even right before the Worms of Madness called Seeds of Destruction, which was about a foot mystic who was basically attempting to assassinate Splinter from the astral plane as he was meditating. And then he wakes and it sort of said along the story that like the foot mystics were coming after them. And then then the Worms of Madness followed. But there was something going I found always really fascinating about Mashima's character and was always genuinely surprised he never made like a named comeback. You can kind of see his influence in a lot of stuff. Actually, coincidentally, even like towards the end of the 2012 show, and maybe some of what you saw in like the cult like things happening in Rise of TMNT, where there's sort of this like crazy devout mystics who are like trying to make Shredder a thing again. They're trying to make him come back. And and also like adjacently, I was like a massive fan of Castlevania. I just like love to sort of everyone's trying to bring Dracula back, and this one everyone's trying to bring Shredder back. And so in this case, I wanted that sort of like wildly crazy cult character who was way more powerful than they should be, to be bringing back something way more evil and powerful than anybody wanted. And then placing that at the center again of this like interesting story about trying to take the Foot Clan. And so Mashima is the one who is trying to take the Foot Clan away from Karai. And Karai has arrived and said, let's form an allegiance, because if we don't, we're all dead." And that sort of sets the tone for what they end up doing for the rest of the game.
So that sounds amazing, but I've got to ask. Like you said, Mashima has one story essentially to his credit in the history of this
Yeah.
massive. God, I don't want to do the math now, but like 40+ year franchise. My God.
Yeah.
Two-part question, I guess. Were you nervous that this would fall with a thud because people will go, "Who? Like, why isn't it Shredder? Why isn't it someone we know?" And also, what was the reaction in the room when you pitched this to Paramount?
You actually have to go back. Yeah, it was funny. When I mentioned Mashima, just I'll answer your last part first. When I first mentioned Mashima, their lore keeper had to go back and like who like they had the I feel like they had several gates. There are people who like know the franchise incredibly well. And they look, and just to be clear, Paramount knows their franchise incredibly well, and they've been insanely helpful throughout this entire process. So nothing I'm saying here is a knock on any of that. But when I first mentioned it, I think they were confused about who I was talking about, and even mischaracterized it as like I forgot who it was, but there's a 2003 show character with another guy and like that has a similar name. And I thought that's who I was talking about, and they had to go all the way up to their like top dog guy knows every single nook and cranny of the IP, and they told him the name, and they told me his reaction was what like of all the people. But again, whenever I tell people the story of what Mashima did in the series, it almost more impactful than nearly any other character ever had. Like who else sort of touched the sort of concept of the resurrection of the Shredder? Like no one else really did. And so I was really again, I'm really fascinated by those characters who have this like crazy devout nature of it. And again, over the next couple decades, they had many other people who attempted that. But as far as I can tell, outside of the efforts of like what happened in Return to New York, like this was the only other effort taken on by this. And so I was like, oh, okay, like let's bring this guy back. I think he deserved to be brought back a long time ago, is my point. So I really wanted to bring back somebody who was fresh, who actually had a really deep cut into the story. I know only super deep cut fans are going to recognize the name, but I think they're going to recognize what he's attempting to do because again, it's been resurrected several times in other characters throughout the history of TMNT.
Awesome. And
Yeah.
it seems like the sort of thing that even if you don't know the character, it's kind of irrelevant. It's a great piece of the story. You'll get to know the character. It's that sort of a situation. Is that fair to say, guys?
Yeah, yeah, and he's wild too. He's like kind of he's out there. He's a little crazy. He's a little crazy. Like something has driven him mad, and I won't spoil that. And he's yeah, I mean, he's a force to be reckoned with. That's so powerful that everyone's a little bit like, what's going on here? You know, and I think you need something of that gravity. I mean, yes, could we have like reached in and done Krang and could we do the Utroms? There's like and beyond that, there's like a million different other interesting characters we could have brought back and did things around that space. I wanted to leave headroom for that, and I thought that this was a really great way to do specifically the City at War arc. Like if we were going to have Karai butting up against what it if we want Karai butting up against the philosophies and beliefs of the Shredder, then I felt like we needed to bring somebody who was devout to the Shredder who would want to hold that against her. And that's what we needed for that. And so like you brought back Krang, he wasn't gonna care. So like that's who I needed. So I needed the foot elite. I needed some other people who were gonna really be able to do that. So
Awesome.
Yeah,
Well,
I think there's never any bad or forgotten characters necessarily. And I mean, look at Marvel. So what they did with Thanos, comic nerds love Thanos. They all the way back to the Infinity Gauntlet comics, but those are in the '80s, and that's quite a while ago too. So they bring back Thanos into this Marvel Cinematic Universe, and now Thanos is practically a meme at this point. Everybody knows who Thanos is, what he does, why he does it, and it's just how these characters are represented to folks. And if you do it right, then they kind of, in a weird way, Mashima is resurrected himself. He comes back into the zeitgeist, and I again attested. There's so many characters in the Turtle pantheon that when you're writing stories, it's hard not to find these hidden jewels and then want to bring them back. And as a matter of fact, I think it's perfect timing too, because IDW now is reprinting those volumes that include, I think, Mashima in these collections now called TMNT Journeys. So these are these tales
yeah.
of TMNT stories that now are being reprinted. So there will be fans being newly exposed, re-exposed to that character, and I think it's just perfect timing for this kind of character. But I also like the idea that I love Krang, I love Shredder. It tends to be when you go into these kind of projects, those are the first names that come up. And you'll say, well, but that other video game, they fought Krang and Shredder. And that other video game, they fought Krang and Shredder. That movie,
Right.
they fought Krang and Shredder. So for me, this just is something that will feel new and fresh, even if this is an older character. This will feel new and fresh to a lot of fans. It'll be a new kind of game with a new kind of enemy. And so that makes it more exciting to me and more unpredictable. The script is awesome for the game. And so I think there's going to be a lot of new Mashima fans that come out of this, whether they know the origin story from way back when or not.
so Tom, I've got to ask, and again, I'm sorry. Apparently, I missed your 2 questions in a question guy today. But 2 questions for you. One, how familiar were you with Mashima before you started talking to Ace? And then also, to Ace's point, long overdue to bring him back. What have you been doing? Are you slacking?
It's funny. I knew the character. I wasn't deeply informed on Mashima, but I knew the idea in general. But I was actually excited. Once Ace brought it up, I kind of did a little research, and I know who he's talking about at Paramount. There's a great friend over there named Jeff Whitman who works on the publishing side. He's like a walking TMT wiki. So you know, as far as hardcore fans, he's the kind of guy you've got to get excited. And so offline, he said to me, Mashima is in that game? That's so awesome. So I said, okay, Ace is going in the right direction. Let me dig in a little. But it's funny, even though we weren't including Mashima, in recent years, especially when we did the Armageddon game event, we brought into the mix with our Turtles was there was always this kind of mystical element, but we really leaned in to this kind of arcane ninja magic that we kind of tiptoed around for many years at IDW. And ironically, it was kind of Shredder who brings it in, you know, in our story. Sorry, spoilers for IDW books, but a resurrected Shredder brings along with him this magical knowledge that it's kind of like, again, having that weapon that you wish you didn't have to use, but now we need to use this weapon. But he's actually the voice of caution. He's the one saying, use this, you know, only if necessary, at your discretion, and then if you don't need it, you need to shelf it. And so in IDW Comics, kind of Karai has kind of picked up the baton with the magic, and it's not going great for her because you can't control it. You know, it's opening that Pandora's box of mystical mysteries that could go in any direction. You don't have like a Doctor Strange that can control it all, the Sorcerer Supreme. You know, these people are opening up these boxes that they probably should have left closed. And this story has that similar vibe. So, you know, fans reading the IDW comics now will be able to jump right into this kind of theme of this idea that just because you have a weapon, just because you have a power, doesn't necessarily mean you should use that power. Kind of, let's ask Oppenheimer. He'll probably tell you the same thing. So I really feel that the little I knew was enough for me to get excited, and then to see how then Ace translated it into the story got me even more excited, you know. And so I'm hoping, just like pretty much anything else happens, when something is reintroduced into this Turtle universe, old and new fans have that tendency to go, you know, I want to go look back at that. I want to know more about this character. I want to go look at that backlist. And so it just benefits the property, you know, in full. You know, everything kind of feeds off each other. And luckily, you know, in this modern age of reprints and Amazons, and you can get these things fairly easily and be able to, you don't have to go dig in deep boxes to find out what was the inspiration for this. And I think it's going to make it a new appreciation for the old stuff, but also a new fresh take on that.
Awesome. That's great. So Mashima resurrects Shredder. Empire City resurrects Mashima. I love it. This is great. This is fabulous. Awesome.
Yeah, it's comics and video games. Nobody dies.
Nobody ever dies. God, wouldn't that be nice? Put me in a comic or a video game. And on that dark note, thank you everybody for tuning in. Really excited that we can finally spill the beans on Mashima. That's something we've all been eagerly sitting on for quite some time. Isn't that right, Ace?
Yeah, that's exciting.
So,
oh yeah. We actually cut him. We cut him out of the experience for all the influencers we were playing. So like no one saw anything.
Well, good. Now they have a reason to jump right back in. I'll take it.
Exactly.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you everybody. Hope you enjoy meeting Mashima if you don't know him already, and we'll see you in headset.
Bye.